Sham Sharadava Nalalida Loka Pranaya Karuna Gana Ganatam Sham Sharadava Nalalida Loka Pranaya Karuna Gana Ganatam Prapta Sakalyana Gunana Vasya Vande Guru Shri Charana Vrindam Prapta Vande Guru Shri Charana Vrindam Vande Guru Shri Charana Vrindam Mahaprabhu ki Tana Nitya Gita Vaditra Madhyam Manasura Sena Romancha Kampasu Taranga Bhajo Vande Guru Shri Charana Vrindam Shri Vigrahara Dhana Nityanana Shingaratanama Dhiramarjanado Juktasya Bhaktam Sa Niyunjatopi Vande Guru Shri Charana Vrindam Vande Guru Shri Charana Chaturvidha Shri Bhagavat Prasada Satvana Triptam Hari Bhakta Sangha Chaturvidha Shri Bhagavat Prasada Satvana Triptam Hari Bhakta Sangha Kritvaiva Triptim Vajata Shadeva Vande Guru Shri Charana Vrindam Kritvaiva Triptim Vajata Shadeva Shiradikama Dabayara Para Madhura Lila Gunarupanamna Shiradikama Para Madhura Lila Pratikshana Swa Dhanalorupasya Vande Guru Shri Charana Vrindam Vande Guru Shri Ne Kunjayono Rati Kelisidhai Jayali Bheri Jukti Apekshaneya Ne Kunjayono Rati Kelisidhai Jayali Bheri Jukti Tatrati Daksha Ativalavasya Vande Guru Shri Charana Vrindam साक्षाद्धरितेन समस्तशास्त्रे रुक्तस्तथाव व्यतैव साधुभिः किन्तु प्रभोज प्रिय एव तस्य वन्दे गौराश्री चरणरवृन्दम् वन्दे गौराश्री चरणरवृन्दम् यस्य प्रसाद भगवत्प्रसाद यस्य प्रसादं नगति कुतपि यस्य प्रसादं नगति कुतपि ध्यायां स्तुवां तस्य यस्य त्रिसन्ध्यं वन्दे गौराश्री चरणरवृन्दम् ध्यायां स्तुवां तस्य यस्य त्रिसन्ध्यं वन्दे गुरुश्री चरणरवृन्दम् वन्दे गुरुश्री चरणरवृन्दम् नमो ॐ विष्णुपदाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्ति वेदांत स्वामिनिति नामिने नमः विष्णुपदाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्ति वेदांत स्वामिनिति नमस्ते सरस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्यादिशतारिणे नमस्ते सरस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्यादिशता जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासादि जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य नित्यानंद गदाधर शिवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद हरे कृष्ण Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare Hare Bol Hare Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare Rama Hare Rama Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama Rama Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare Bol Hare Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Hare Yaraya Namah Krishna Jadavaya Namah Jadavaye Madhavaye Kesavaye Namah. Gopal Govinda Ram Shri Madhusudan. Giridhari Gopinath Madana Mohan. Shri Chaitanya Nityananda Shri Advaita Sita. Hare Guru Vaishnava Bhagavata Gita. Shri Rupa Sanatan Bhattara Guna. Shri Jiva Gopala Bhatta Dasara Guna. Hariyaraye Namah Krishna Jadavaye Namah. Gopal Govinda Ram Shri Madhusudan. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare. Hare Ram 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare. Hare Ram Ram Ram. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare. Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare. Hare Rama Rama Rama. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare. Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare 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 Rama. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare. Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare. Hare Rama Rama Rama. Shri Radha Nila Madhava Radhe. Jaya Jagannath Jaya Baladeva Jaya Subhadrama Jaya Sudarshan Chakra. Jaya Sitaram Jaya Lakshman Hanuman. Nitai Gaur Haribol Nitai Gaur Haribol Nitai Gaur Pramanande Haribol. Jai Vishwapara Paramsa Prabhajakacharya Suttara Sarasishimad Yajvan Case of Bhaktivinoda Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON Pratishta Bhaviti Samstapakacharya Vaishnava Sramamani Gora Priyajana Krishna Prema Bhaktinata Patit Pavana Srila Prabhupada Ji Maharaj Ki Jai. Shri Gauriya Guru Varga Patiti Udhar Ki Jai. Shri Rupa Sanatana Bhatta Raghunatha Shri Jiva Gopala Bhatta Dasa Guna Sadgoswami Prabhu Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ji Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnavrinda Ki Jai. Prem se Kaho Sri Krishna Chaitanya प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासारि गौर भक्तवृंद की जय। जय परम दयाल श्री नित्यानंद प्रभु की जय। प्रेम नाम संकीर्तन एक जनक प्रेम पुरुषोत्तम श्री सच्चिदानंद स्मरण गौरंग चैतन्य महाप्रभु गौर हरि महावरण अवतार की जय। गोल केर प्रधान हरिनाम संकीर्तन जय की जय। जुग धर्म हरे कृष्ण मंत्र की जय। बृहत मृदंग ट्रांसलेंटल बुक डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन सेवा की जय। श्री श्री राधा कृष्ण गोप गोपिन राधा कुंज समुकुंद गिरिराज गोवर्धन की जय। श्री ब्रज भूमि वृंदावन मथुर धाम की जय। तेलोशिव श्री श्री राधा नील माधव की जय। श्री माया पुनवद्वीप एक चक्र धाम की जय। परम करुण श्री श्री गौर निताय की जय। श्री पुरुषोत्तम क्षेत्र जगन्नाथपुरी धाम की जय। श्री श्री जगन्नाथ स्वामी बलदेव प्रभु सुभद्रा देवी सुदर्शन चक्र भगवान की जय। भक्ति सर्व विघ्न विनाशन कर्ण सिंहरी भगवान की जय। जय गंगा माय जमुना माय की जय। तुलसी महारानी वृंद देवी भक्ति देवी की जय। बोलो श्रीमती राधा रानी की जय। समवेत भक्त वृंद की जय। निताय गौर हरि प्रमानंदे हरि बोल। All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories, all glories, all glories to Shri Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga. Jai. Namaste Narasimhaya. Namaste Narasimhaya. Pralada Lada Hoine. Pralada Lada Hoine. Hiranyakashipu Bhaksham. Hiranyakashipu Bhaksham. Silatankanakalaye. Jaya Silatankanakalaye. Ito Nishinga Parata Nishinga. Jato jato jami tato Nishinga. Bair Nishinga Hrudaye Nishinga. Bair Nishinga Hrudaye Nishinga. Narasingha Madhim Sharanam Prapade. Tabakara Kamala Bare Nakam Adabhuta Stringa. Dalita Hiranyakashipu Tanabringa. Kesavagrita Narahari Rupa Jai Jagadisha Re, Jai Jagadisha Re, Jai Jagadisha Re. Tava kara kamala vare naka arabhutta sringa dalita hiranyakashipu tanabringa kesavadrita nararirupa jai jagadisha re jai jagadisha re jai jagadisha re kesavadrita nararirupa jai jagadisha re jai jagadisha re jai jagadisha re kesavadrita narahari rupa jai jagadisha re jai jagadisha re jai jagadisha Jaya Nishingade, Jaya Nishingade, Nishingade, Jaya Nishingade. Jaya Narahari, Jaya Narahari. Narahari Jaya Narahari Jaya Lakshmi Narasimha Jaya Lakshmi Narasimha Jaya Lakshmi Narasimha Jaya Jaya Bhakta Prahlad Prahlad Mara Bhakta Prahlad Jaya Prahlad Nitai Gaura Haribo 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 Nitai Gaura Haribo Jai Shri Bhakti Pada Sarabhigna Prahlad Maharaj ki Jai Nitai Gaurari Premanande Hari Hari Bol Shri Vrindai Tulasi Devai Priyaye Kesava Satya Vishnu Bhakti Prade Devi Shatabhataye Namo Namaha Vrindayai Tulasi Devai Priyayai Kesava Satya Vishnu Bhakti Prade Devi Shatabhataye Namo Namaha Vrindayai Tulasi Devai Priyayai Kesava Satya Vishnu Bhakti Prade Devi Shatabhataye Namo Namaha Jai Shrimati Tulasi Maharani Vrinda Devi ki
नमः तुलसी कृष्णा प्रेयसी नमो नमः नमो नमः तुलसी कृष्णा प्रेयसी नमो नमः राधा कृष्णा सेवा पावो ए अभिलाषी राधा कृष्णा सेवा पावो ए अभिलाषी जे तो मारा शरण लो तारा वंच पूरा न हो कृपा कोरी कोरो तारे वृंदावन वासी मोराए अभिलाष विलास कुंज दियो वास नयने हरिबो सदा जुगल रूपरासी ए निवेदाना धारो साखीर अनुगाता कोरो सेवा अधिकारा दिए कोरो निज दासी दीना कृष्णा दासे कोए ना मोरा होए श्री राधा गोविंदा प्रेमे सदा ये ना भासी श्री राधा गोविंदा प्रेमे सदा ये ना भासी नमो नमः तुलसी कृष्णा प्रेयसी नमो नमः यानि कानि च पापानि ब्रह्माहत्यादिकानि च तानि तानि दक्षिण पदे पदे यानि कानि च पापानि ब्रह्मा हत्यादिकानि च तानि तानि प्रणाशन्ति प्रदक्षिणा पदे पदे यानि कानि च पापानि ब्रह्मा हत्यादिकानि च तानि तानि प्रणाशन्ति प्रदक्षिणा पदे पदे हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे जया तुलसी महारानी जया तुलसी महारानी जया तुलसी महारानी जया तुलसी महारानी जया वृंदा देवी जया वृंदा देवी जया वृंदा देवी जया वृंदा देवी नित्याय गौरा हरि बोल हरि बोल हरि बोल नित्याय गौरा हरि बोल नित्याय गौरा हरि बोल हरि बोल हरि बोल नित्याय गौरा हरि बोल। श्रीमती तुलसी महारानी वृंदा देवी की जय
जय। Vrindayi tulasi divayi Priyayi Sarasatya Vishnu Bhakti Pradadevi Sattvatai Namah Vrindayi tulasi divayi Priyayi Sarasatya Vishnu Bhakti Pradadevi Tulsi Maharani Vrinda Devi ki jai। Oh Tulsi, hello Krishna, I'm happy for you again and again. Mine is a to obtain the service of Shri Radha and Krishna. Whoever takes shelter of his wishes fulfilled, bestowing myself upon him and making resident over Vrindavana. My desire is that you also give me a residence, pleasure groves of Shri Vrindavan Dham. Thus, within my vision, I will always behold the beautiful pastimes of Radha and Krishna. I beg you to make me a full evidence of the Braj. Please give me the privilege of devotional service and make me ornate servant. His very fallen and lowly servant Krishna praise. May I also sing the love of Shri Radha and Govinda. Jai Shrimati Tulsi Maharani Vrinda Devi Ki Jai. Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Sikhyastakam Ki Jai. Cheto Darpanam Arjanam Bhavamadavani Nivapanam Shreyakari Vachandrika Vitaranam Vidyavadu Jivanam Anandam Buddhivardhanam Padipadam Purnamrita Sadhanam Sarvatmasnam Param Param Vijayati Shri Krishna Sankirtanam Nam Namakari Vaudha Nija Sarva Shaktis Tatrarpitaniyamita Smarane Nakala Itadrushitava Kripaya Bhagavan Mamapi Durdhaivam Idrishamya Jani Nanuraga Trinadapi Sunichena Tarorapi Saishnana Amani Namana Dena Kitanya Sadari Nadananda Sunadim Kavitam Vajagadi Shakami Mama Janmane Janmane Bhavata Bhakti Rahati Oinandatan Jakinkaram Patitamam Vishame Bhavam Buddho Kripaya Tava Pada Pankaja Sitaduli Sadrisham Vichintaya Nayanam Galarashru Dharaya Varanam Gadagata Rudaya Gira Purakaya Chitam Bhukada Tavanama Grane Bhavisati Yugayitam Nimishena Shakisha Pravasaitam Sunyayitam Jagat Sarvam Govinda Vedayenam Aslisha Padaratam Pinashtumam Adarshnar Marmahatam Karotuva Jatata Dhava Vidadhatulam Pato Matranastastu Saivana Para Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Sikhyastakam Ki Jai. Namo Mahavarandaya Krishna Glory to the Shri Krishna Sankirtana, which cleanses the heart of all the dust accumulated for years and extinguishes the fire of conditional life by repeated birth and death. This Sankirtan movement is the prime benediction for humanity at large, because it spreads the rays of the benediction movement. It is the life of all transcendental knowledge. It increases the ocean of transcendental bliss and enables us to fully taste the nectar for which we are always anxious. O my Lord, your holy name alone can render all benediction to living beings, and thus you have hundreds and millions of names like Krishna and Govinda. In these transcendental names you have invested your transcendental energies. There are not even hard and fast rules for chanting these names. O my Lord, out of kindness you enable us to easily approach you by your holy names, but I am so unfortunate that I have no attraction for them. Once you chant the holy name of the Lord in a humble state of mind, thinking oneself lower than a straw in the street, one should be more tolerant than a tree, devoid of all sense of false prestige, and should be ready to offer all respect to others. In such state of mind one can chant the holy name of the Lord constantly. O my Lord, I have no desire to accumulate wealth, nor do I desire beautiful women, nor do I want any number of followers. I only want your causeless devotional service birth after birth. O son of Maharaj Nanda Krishna, I am your eternal servitor, yet somehow or other I have fallen in this ocean of birth and death. Please pick me up from this ocean of death and place me as one of the atoms at your lotus feet.
O my Lord. When will my eyes be decorated with tears of love flowing constantly when I chant your holy name? When will my voice choke up, and when will the hairs of my body stand on end at the recitation of your holy name? O Govinda, feeling your separation, I am considering a moment to be like 12 years or more. Tears are flowing from my eyes like torrents of rain, and I am feeling all vacant in the world in your absence. I know no one but Krishna is my Lord, and he shall remain so, even if he handles me roughly by his embrace, or makes me broken-hearted by not being present before me. He is completely free to do anything and everything, for he is always my worshipful Lord, unconditionally. Shri Chaitanya Siksastikam Ki Jai. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Shrimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Tanam. Namaste Saraswati Devi Guruvani Panchani Visesh Sunyavani Paskati Vistara.
There are 10 offenses in matter of chanting the holy name of the Lord that should be avoided. They are as follows. 1.
To blaspheme the devotees who dedicate their lives to propagating holy names of the Lord.
2. To consider the names of demigods, the Lord Shiva and Lord Brahma, to be equal to or independent of the name of Lord Vishnu. 3.
To disobey the orders of the spiritual master.
4.
To blaspheme the Vedic literature and pursuant to the Vedic version. 5. To consider the glories of chanting Hare Krishna to be imagination. 6. To give some interpretation of the holy name of the Lord. 7. To commit sinful activities on the strength of chanting the holy name of the Lord.
8.
To consider the chanting Hare Krishna as one of the auspicious ritualistic activities which are offered in the Vedas as fruitive activities of karma kanda.
9.
To instruct the faithless person about the glories of the holy name.
And 10.
To not have complete faith in the chanting of the holy names and to maintain material attachments even after understanding so many instructions in this matter. It is also an offense to be in attendance while chanting. Every devotee who claims to be a Vaishnava must carefully guard against these 10 offenses in order to quickly achieve the desired success. Krishna Prema. Now let us offer our most humble obeisances unto all the Vaishnava devotees of the Lord. They are just like desire trees that can fulfill the desires of everyone, and they are full of compassion for the fallen conditioned souls. Vanchikalpa Tarabhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Vaishnava Thakur Ki Jai. Nama Om Vishnu Krishna Prasthaya Bhutali Samata Bhakta Samata Namaste Saraswati Guru. Shri Guru Pranama prayers Ki Jai. Om Aganyati Mirandasya Yananjana Salakaya Chaksurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Sapitam Yena Bhutali Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Bandeham Shri Guru Shri Jataha Pachakamalan Shri Gurun Vaishnavamsha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahaguna Ragunatan Vitam Tam Sajivam Saidvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishaka Nimitam Sa Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Nitinamini Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pacharine Sunyavadi Paschatya Desatarine Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Shrimati Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Tinamini Shivasavani Videvi Dayitaya Kripabdaya Krishna Sambandha Vijnana Dayane Prabhave Namaha Madhur Ujvala Premadya Shri Rupanuga Bhaktita Shri Gora Karuna Shakti Vigrahaya Namostate Namaste Gauravani Shri Murtaye Dinatarine Rupanuga Viruddha Siddhanta Dvantaharine Namo Gora Kishoraya Shashagvaragya Murtaye Vipralambara Sambodhe Padambujayate Namaha Namo Bhakti Vinodaya Sachitanandanamine Gora Shakti Swarupaya Rupanuga Varayate Gauravir Baba Bhumestvam Nirdesta Sajjana Priya Vaishnava Savabhoma Shri Jagannatayate Namaha Panchakalpa Turabhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Padayate Krishna Krishna Chaitanya Namne Gurutase Namaha Panchatattvatmakam Krishnam Bhakta Rupa Swarupakam Bhakta Avataram Bhaktakam Namami Bhakta Saktikam Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Sazdam Turbangur Mamamanda Matergati Matsarva Swapadambo Jo Radha Madana Mohano Divyad Vindaranya Kalpradumadaha Shimad Ratnagara Simasanastito Shimad Radha Sila Govinda Devo Prastali Vihi Sevyamano Smarami Shiman Rasa Rasaram Bivam Sivata Tatastita Karsan Venus Maner Gopir Gopinatak Striyestruna Tapta Kanchana Gorangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Stute Devi Pranamami Hare Priye Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasudeva Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Shri Brahma Samiti Ki Jai Ishvara Parama Krishna Sachitananda Vigraha Nadi Radhi Govinda Sarvakarana Karanam Chintamani Prakata Sadma Sukalpa Riksha Laksa Vriti Susurabi Rabi Paliantam Lakshmi Sahasra Satasam Brahma Sevyamanam Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Vaimnun Kwanantam Aravinda Dalayataksam Barhavatam Samasitam Buddha Sundarangam Kandarpa Koti Kamaniya Visesha Sobam Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Alola Chandra Kalasadvanamaya Vamsi Ratnam Gadam Pranayakeli Kalavilasam Shaman Tribanga Lalita Nita Prakasam Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Angani Yasya Sakalendriya Rittimanti Pasyanti Panti Kalyanti Chiram Jaganti Ananda Chinmaya Sadujvala Vikrahasya Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Advaitam Achyutam Anadim Anantarupam Adyam Purana Purisham Navayovanam Cha Vedesa Durlabam Adurlabam Atma Bhakto Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Pantastakoti Satavatsara Sampragamyo Vayoratapi Manasomari Pungamanam Sopyasti Yat Prapadasimya Vichintidatve Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Ekopya Sora Chaitam Jagaranda Kotim Just Chaktirasti Jagaranda Chaya Yadanta Dantarasta Paramanu Chayantarastam Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Yad Bhava Bhavita Diyomar Jastataiva Sampra Rupa Mahima Sanayana Bhusra Suktarya Meva Nigama Pratitaistuvanti Govinda Mahadi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Ananda Chinmaya Rasam Patibhavita Vistabirya Eva Nijarupa Tayakalabi Goloka Eva Nivasata Kilatma Bhuto Govinda Mahadi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Premanjana Churita Bhakti Vilochanena Santaksa Deva Hidesu Vilokayante Yam Shama Sundaram Achintyat Gunaswarupam Govinda Mahadi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Ramadi Murti Sukalani Mena Nana Avatar Makarod Bhuvanesu Kintu Krishna Swayam Samabhavat Paramam Pumamyo Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajam Yasya Prabha Prabhavato Jagananda Koti Koti Svasesu Vasudadi Vibhuti Bhinam Tad Brahma Niskalam Anantam Asesu Bhutam Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajam Mayahi Yasya Jagananda Satani Sute Traigunya Tad Visaya Veda Vitaya Mano Sattva Vulambi Parasatvam Visuddha Sattvam Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Ananda Chinmayara Satmataya Manasu Prani Nam Patifulam Smaratam Upetya Lila Yatena Bhuvanani Jaya Jasram Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Goloka Namni Nijitamni Talit Tasya Devi Mahesu Hadidama Satesu Tesu Tete Prabhavini Jaya Vichasya Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Shistista Te Pralaya Sadhava Saktireka Jaya Vyasya Bhuvanani Vibharti Durga Ichana Rupam Abhyasya Chitesta Tesa Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Kashiram Yatada Divikara Visesa Yoga Sanjayate Nitata Pritakasti Hetu Yasambutama Pitatasam Paitikaya Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Departure Devi Hita Santaramabhyapetya Dipayate Vivitetu Samanudharmi Astadrigeva Icha Vishnu Tayabhibhati Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Yakarna Narna Vajale Pajatisma Yoga Nidramananta Jagaranda Saroma Kupa Adhara Saktim Avalamya Param Smavurtim Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Yashaika Nisvasitikala Matavalamya Shivanti Loma Vilaja Jagananda Nata Vishnu Mahansa Yasya Kalaviseso Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Yat Pasman Yatasma Sakaleshan Jesu Teja Sriyam Kiyat Prakatayata Pitadvatatra Brahmaya Esa Jagananda Vidana Karta Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Yat Pada Palava Yugam Vinandaya Kumbadwande Pranama Samayesa Ganadi Raja Vignan Vinanta Malamasya Jagatrayasya Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Yagnir Mahika Ganamabu Maruti Sasya Kalas Tatatma Manasiti Jagatrayani Yasmad Bhavanti Vibhavanti Visantiham Cha Govinda Mahadi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Yaschak Suresa Savita Sakala Grahanam Raja Samasta Suramurti Sesa Teja Yasya Gaya Brahmati Sambrita Kala Chakro Govinda Mahadi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Dharmota Papa Nichaya Sutestapam Si Brahmadi Kita Patagava Des Jiva Yadata Matari Baba Pakitar Baba Govinda Mahadi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Yastrinda Gopa Matavenda Mahosvakarma Vandan Rupa Falabhajana Matanoti Karmani Nidati Kintu Chabakti Bhajam Govinda Mahadi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Yam Kroda Kama Saja Pranayadi Bitti Vatsalya Moha Guru Gorva Sevya Bhava Sanchintya Tasha Sadrisim Tamapurete Govinda Mahadi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Shriyakanta Kanta Parama Purusha Kalpataravo Jumabu Mischintamani Ganama Itoyam Amritam Kataganam Natyam Gamanam Apivam Sipriyasaki Chiranandam Jati Param Apitad Aswadyam Apicha Sayatra Shiradi Bhisavadi Surabi Byastu Sumaha Mies Sardar Vavrajati Naya Chapit Samaya Bajay Switadri Pam Tamaham Iagolakam Itiam Vitantas Te Santakshati Virachara Katipaye Shri Brahmasamita Ki Jai, Shri Guru Vastaka Prayers Ki Jai. The spiritual master is receiving benediction from the ocean of mercy, just as a cloud pours water on the forest fire to extinguish it. So the spiritual master delivers the materially afflicted world by extinguishing the blazing fire of material existence. However, my respectful basis of the lotus feet of such a spiritual master is the ocean of auspicious qualities, chanting the holy name, dancing in ecstasy, singing and playing musical instruments. The spiritual master is always gladdened by the Sankirtan movement of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, because he is relishing the mellows of pure devotion within his mind. Sometimes his hair stands on end, he feels quivering in his body, and tears fall from his eyes like waves. Out from my respectful basis on the lotus feet of such a spiritual master. The spiritual master is always engaged in the temple worship of Shri Radha and Krishna. He also engages his disciples in such worship. They dress the deities in beautiful clothes and ornaments, clean their temple, and perform other similar worship of the Lord. Out from my respectful basis onto the lotus feet is such a spiritual master. The spiritual master is always offering Krishna 4 kinds of delicious food, analyzes that which is licked, chewed, drunk, and sucked. When the spiritual master sees that the devotees are satisfied by eating Bhagavad Prasada, he is satisfied. From my respectful basis onto the lotus feet is such a spiritual master. The spiritual master is always eager to hear and chant about the unlimited conjugal passion of Radhika and Madhava and their qualities, names, and forms. The spiritual master aspires to relish these at every moment. From my respectful basis onto the lotus feet is such a spiritual master. The spiritual master is very dear because he is expert at assisting gopis who at different times make different tasteful arrangements for the perfection of Radha and Krishna's conjugal loving affairs within the groves of Vrindavana. From my most humble basis onto the lotus feet is such a spiritual master. The spiritual master is to be honored as much as the Supreme Lord because he's the most confidential servant to the Lord. This is acknowledged in all revealed scriptures and followed by all authorities. Therefore, from my respectful basis, not the lotus feet is such a spiritual master who is a bona fide representative of Sri Hari Krishna. By the mercy of the spiritual master, one receives the benediction of Krishna. Without the grace of the spiritual master, one cannot make any advancement. Therefore, I should always remember and praise the spiritual master. At least 3 times a day, I should offer my respectful basis unto the lotus feet of my spiritual master, his divine grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 2. Text number 25. Vasudevasya Devakyam Chato Bhojendra Bandhane Chikirtsur Bhagavan Asya Sam Ajen Abhiyachitaha. Vasudevasya, of the wife of Vasudeva. Devakyam, in the womb of Devaki. Jata, born of. Bhoja Indra, of the king of the Bhojas. Bandhane, in the prison house. Chikirsu, for doing. Bhagavan, the personality of Godhead. Asya, of the earth. Sam, welfare. Ajena, by Brahma. Abhiyachita, being prayed for. Translation by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. The personality of Godhead, Lord Shri Krishna, being prayed to by Brahma to bring welfare to the earth, was begotten by Vasudeva in the womb of his wife Devaki in the prison of the king of Bhoja. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Although there's no difference between the Lord's pastimes of appearance and disappearance, the devotees of the Lord do not generally discuss the subject matter of his disappearance. Vidura inquired indirectly from Uddhava about the incident of the Lord's disappearance by asking him a related Krishna Katha, or topics on the history of Lord Krishna. Thus, Uddhava began the topics from the very beginning of his appearance, meaning Krishna's appearance as the son of Vasudeva and Devaki in the prison of Kamsa, the king of the Bhojas at Mathura. The Lord had no business in this world, but when he is so requested by devotees like Brahma, he descends on the earth for the welfare of the entire universe. This is stated in Bhagavad Gita 4.8, Paritranaya sadunam vinasaya chaduskritam dharma samsta panartaya sambhavami yuge yuge. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Text 26. Tato nanda rajam ita pitrakam sad vibhibyate ikadasa samastatra gudarchi sabalo vasad. Tata, thereafter, Nanda Vrajam, cow pastures of Nanda Maharaja. Ita, being brought up, Pitra, by his father, Kamsat, from Kamsa, Vibhibyate, being afraid of, Ekadisa, 11, Sama, years, Tatra, therein, Gudat Archi, covered fire, Sabala, with Baladeva, Avasat, resided. Translation by Srila Prabhupada. Thereafter his father, being afraid of Kamsa, brought him to the cow pastures of Maharaja Nanda, and there he lived for 11 years, like a covered flame, with his elder brother Baladeva. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. There was no necessity of the Lord's being dispatched to the house of Nanda Maharaja. Out of fear of Kamsa's determination to kill him as soon as he appeared. It is the business of the Asuras to try to kill the Supreme Personality of Godhead, or to prove by all means that there is no God, or that Krishna is an ordinary human being and not God. Lord Krishna is not affected by such determination of men of Kamsa's class, but in order to play the role of a child, he agreed to be carried by his father to the cow pastures of Nanda Maharaja, because Vasudeva was afraid of Kamsa. Nanda Maharaja was due to receive him as his child, and Yasodamai was also to enjoy the childhood pastimes of the Lord, and therefore, to fulfill everyone's desire, he was carried from Mathura to Vrindavana just after his appearance in the prison house of Kamsa. He lived there for 11 years and completed all his fascinating pastimes of childhood, boyhood, and adolescence with his elder brother, Lord Balarama. His first expansion. Vasudeva's thought of protecting Krishna from the wrath of Kamsa is part of a transcendental relationship. The Lord enjoys more when someone takes him as his subordinate son, who needs the protection of a father, than he does when someone accepts him as the Supreme Lord. He is the father of everyone, and he protects everyone. But when his devotee takes it for granted that the Lord is to be protected by the devotee's care, it is a transcendental joy for the Lord. Thus, when Vasudeva, out of fear of Kamsa, carried him to Vrindavana, the Lord enjoyed it. Otherwise, he had no fear from Kamsa or anyone else. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Thereafter his father, being afraid of Kamsa, brought him to the cow pastures of Maharaj Nanda, and there he lived for 11 years like a covered flame with his elder brother Balarama. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So generally, devotees do not talk about the disappearance of Krishna. Why? Because it's illusory, that's why. It's not an eternal thing. And in order to, and this is called the Mangala Lila, in order to convince the atheists that Krishna is not God, Krishna performed, certain stories are put in the Mahabharata or the Veda or Puranas to confuse the atheists. And they're called Mangala Lila. Mangala Lila refers specifically to the slaughter or the fratricidal slaughter of the sons of Krishna or the Yadus that killed each other to the last person, so that there would be it's a longer story, but they insulted a genuine sage, the Yadus, and they were very powerful. They're sons of Krishna, and the sage cursed them. And when they understood this, the Yadus, they were supposed to be cursed by being killed by an iron bar. So the Yadus got that iron bar and powdered it, and then threw it into the air, and it landed in nature. And they thought, well, we're not going to be killed by that iron bar. Well, what happened is those particles were absorbed by plants. Plants absorb minerals from the ground. Iron is a mineral. And it was powdered, so it becomes absorbable at that point when it's in a very tiny powder. And then eventually the Yadus became drunk, and because they're Kshatriyas, so they're allowed to drink liquor if they want to. Of course, that's a mistake. They got drunk, and they started fighting, and thinking they were going to have fun, and they grabbed these reeds that had grown in a field, and those reeds had absorbed the iron powder, and they killed each other. They thought they were just reeds, but actually they were iron rods. And in their drunkenness, they made that mistake. So that was necessary because Krishna did not want such powerful sons to be present in the world without his presence, because they would most certainly deviate and create havoc. So they all went back to Godhead. So that fratricidal war between the Yadus eliminated them. And therefore Krishna has no blood relationship after him. So some people claim that they are direct descendants of Krishna. I remember one time in France, there was this one devotee girl who was Jewish. And so in the Jewish vernacular called Yiddish, they refer to Jews as Yids. They refer to themselves as Yids. So this girl, with her fertile brain, had heard from some people that the Jews are direct descendants of the Yadus, and this word Yid she took to mean Yadu. So one day we were on Sankirtan, and she was explaining in Paris, where there are a lot of Arabs because from Algeria and Morocco, because France used to have Algeria as a colony. So she was explaining to these Muslims how the Jews are descended directly from Krishna. So someone came up to me. I was chanting. Someone came up to me and explained what she was saying. So I immediately went to her and I took her away from that group of Arabs before they probably kill her. And and I told her, look, first of all, what you're saying is not true. There were no direct descendants of Krishna. The Yadus killed each other. Secondly, I said, you have no business identifying yourself as a Jew. You're not Jewish, and I'm not Armenian either, because when you join Krishna consciousness, you understand that that's just a temporary identification, and therefore, if you think that you are, then you will be an illusion. You weren't that in previous life, and you probably will not be the same thing in the next life. So don't say things like that, because it's misrepresenting yourself. As a devotee of Krishna, you're free of all false identifications. Sarva padi vinirmukta tatparat vena nirmalam hishikena hishikesha sevana bhaktir uchite. So it says this sarvapadi, all false identifications, vinirmuktam, are annihilated or destroyed. Sarvapadi vinirmuktam tatparat vena nirmalam. And all such things are purified by the process of Krishna consciousness. Hrishikena Hrishikesha Sevanam Bhakti Uttama. By engaging in transcendental service of Krishna with your mind, senses, and body, you become purified of these false identifications. And Hrishikena Hrishikesha Sevanam Bhakti Uchite. This is called Bhakti Yoga. Right? So, and so that Moshala Lila is also, in other words, Krishna supposedly was shot in the foot by a low-class person, and he died, and he left the body. But that's not exactly true. Krishna, of course, is Yogeshwara, the master of mystical powers. So, to confuse the atheists and demons, he left what is considered a material body. It was not his body, but it was a facsimile that looked something like him. And then the demons, they always recite this story. Like one time I was with a Sikh gentleman. I'd invite him to come to our temple and have prasadam in the temple restaurant in Delhi. Delhi has a wonderful restaurant. Delhi Temple has a wonderful restaurant. And while we were talking, he said to me, you know, I like you very much. You're a very sincere person. So I'm going to have to tell you the truth about your so-called God. So, you know, I was a little surprised when he said that. He said, your God was killed. That means he's not actually God. So then I realized this guy is really nonsense. So I told him, listen, first of all, you're a Sikh. Most of your so-called gurus were murdered by Muslims. Now, if you insult Krishna one more time, I'm going to insult every one of your gurus. And be very careful what you say from this point on. What you just said is not true. Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He has an eternal body. It's made of Satchitananda Vigraha. That is an illusory story purposely put by Vyasadeva to confuse nonsense people like you who are demoniac and do not accept that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So be very careful what you say from now on, because you are treading on very dangerous subject. So he kept his mouth shut the rest of the time. So they are purposely put in the Vedas by Vyasadeva to bewilder more the demons and the atheists. But the devotees are not bewildered by these what you would call illusory stories, because they listen to classes given by genuine devotees. Those devotees who don't listen to the classes, they get confused about Krishna consciousness, although they're chanting and so forth. Everything depends on one's progress in Krishna consciousness depends on hearing and chanting, hearing from genuine devotees, just like Maharaj Parikshit is hearing from Sukadeva Goswami. And Sukadeva Goswami, and also not only Maharaj Parikshit, but Sutta Goswami also heard from Sukadeva Goswami. And Sukadeva Goswami heard from his father, Vyasadeva. Therefore, they're all transcendental personalities. So this is explained in chapter 13, verse number 26. This is a very important verse and purport. And it says, again, there are those who, although not conversant in spiritual knowledge, begin to worship the Supreme Person upon hearing about him from others. Because of their tendency to hear from authorities, they also transcend the path of birth and death. So that's 13:26. This verse is particularly applicable to modern society because in modern society there's practically no education in spiritual matters. Some of the people may appear to be atheistic or agnostic or philosophical, but actually there is no knowledge of philosophy. So one time, why is Prabhupada saying that? It's a fact. One time, some smarty pants guy, a Hindu, listening to a lecture by Prabhupada, raised his hand and asked a question. He said, Prabhupada, let's assume that Krishna is not God. And then Prabhupada stopped and he said, stop. He said, wait a minute, I didn't ask my question. It's just stop. Your question is not logical. He said, no. All the time in college we ask these hypothetical questions. He says, stop. You don't know what logic is. So you have not asked, you're not asking. He said, but how do you know it's not logical? I didn't even finish no, you began with a false statement. I said, what false statement? He said, let's assume that Krishna is not God. That is nonsense. He wouldn't even let him speak because right away he said something that's nonsense. Right? You see how sharp Prabhupada is, right? How can you assume that Krishna is not the Supreme Personality of Godhead? It doesn't make sense. Where the greatest thinkers, great acharyas, and Sri Vaishnavas, and Gaudiya Vaishnavas, and the Rudra Sampradaya, and the Nimbarka Sampradaya, they all claim that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And how is this joker saying, let's assume that he's not? Right? So whatever hypothetical question he's going to ask is starting from nonsense. Therefore, we don't have to hear it. It doesn't make sense. So here it says, some of the people may appear to be atheistic or agnostic or philosophical, but actually there's no knowledge of philosophy. That's a fact. As for the common man, if he is a good soul, then there is a chance for advancement by hearing. This hearing process is very important. Lord Chaitanya, who preached Krishna consciousness in the modern world, gave great stress to hearing because if a common man simply hears from authoritative sources, he can progress, especially according to Lord Chaitanya. See, there it is right there. It's right in the Bhagavad Gita. Okay. So those devotees who don't come to class on a regular basis, they're not going to make much spiritual advancement. They'll only remain in Krishna consciousness out of custom and habit, but not with genuine philosophical convictions. And therefore, they can get confused. And usually what happens is such devotees will maintain material desires and chant Hare Krishna, which is one of the offenses against the holy name. Right? It's the last offense. to maintain material desires and chant Hare Krishna. And therefore, they cannot be liberated from the cycle of birth and death. Okay, so this hearing process is very important. Lord Chaitanya, who preached Krishna consciousness in the modern world, gave great stress to hearing, because if the common man simply hears from authoritative sources, he can progress, especially, according to Lord Chaitanya, if he hears the transcendental vibration, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. It is stated, therefore, that all men should take advantage, men means all men and women, right? Or should take advantage of hearing from realized souls and gradually become able to understand everything. You have to hear from a realized soul, not from some hypothetical nonsense. Oh, let's assume that Krishna is not God. Then stop. Prabhupada says, stop. He said, this is not a logical question. It's like saying, let's assume you don't have a father and mother. What? How can you not have a father and mother? You can't be born unless there's a father and mother. So, what are you saying? Even Lord Brahma, he had a father. It was Garbhodakshay Vishnu. So Garbhodakshay Vishnu was so powerful, he doesn't need a woman to procreate. The worship of the Supreme Lord will then undoubtedly take place. Lord Chaitanya has said that in this age, no one needs to change his position, but one should give up the endeavor to understand the absolute truth by speculative reasoning. Well, let's assume there's no God. That's speculative reasoning at its best, or at its worst, right? One should learn to become the servant of those who are in knowledge of the Supreme Lord. If one is fortunate enough to take shelter of a pure devotee, hear from him about self-realization, and follow in his footsteps, one will be gradually elevated to the position of a pure devotee. In this verse, particularly, the process of hearing is strongly recommended, and this is very appropriate. Although the common man is often not as capable as so-called philosophers, faithful hearing from an authoritative person will help one transcend this material existence and go back to Godhead, back to home. So faithful hearing from an authoritative person. See, if you read Bhagavad Gita but you have no faith that Krishna is God, you won't understand anything. So if you want to understand Bhagavad Gita, even if before reading it or hearing it you did not believe in God, while you're reading or hearing Bhagavad Gita, you should accept that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Then you will begin to understand. If you read it without accepting that Krishna is not the Supreme Personality of Godhead, you won't understand anything. Okay. So then we come back to this main point that there are certain illusory stories in the Vedas, purposely put there by Vyasadeva to fool the fools, or the atheists, the agnostics, the demons, and so forth. But the devotees are not fooled because they listen to classes by bona fide devotees where these things are explained. Okay. So it says, but Vidura, he wanted to know about the disappearance of Krishna, but he asked a general question. Can you tell me something about, Krishna from beginning to end? So Uddhava begins at the beginning, and now he's going to go through this in the next many verses. Also, Krishna will appear when his pure devotees request him to, although he has no business coming to the material world. And when he does descend to the material world, he descends with his transcendental potency and with Yoga Maya. He's never influenced by Mahamaya. He's always protected by Yoga Maya. Yoga Maya is the illusion by which one comes closer to Krishna, and Mahamaya is the illusion by which one goes away from Krishna. So Krishna is never influenced by Mahamaya. He's only influenced. He is only protected by Yogamaya. So then, next it talks about, the next verse, it talks about why, Krishna left the house or the palace of Devaki and Vasudeva and was transferred to Nanda Maharaj and Yasoda Mai. Well, this was a transcendental pastime, and he wanted to act like an ordinary child, so therefore his father was afraid of Kamsa. He was afraid that if Kamsa saw Krishna, he would kill him. So Krishna plays like an ordinary child, and he also pretends to have fear of Kamsa, although he has no fear of Kamsa. And he lets his father carry this helpless baby that was just born from the prison house of Kamsa, from the prison of Kamsa to Vrindavan, which is about, I would say, I took a Tunga once from Mathura to Vrindavan. It took about 45 minutes. Of course, it was a very skinny horse and an old Tunga. But I would say it's maybe, 10, 15 miles from Mathura to get to Vrindavan. So, but you have to cross at that time you had to cross the Yamuna River to get there. And while Vasudeva was crossing the Yamuna, something miraculous happened. The river stopped on one side and continued on the other side, so it gave a dry path for him to walk across. He didn't have to swim. But while he was doing that, Krishna arranged that he would slip into the water and float downstream. And when that happened, Vasudeva was devastated. He thought his son was going to die. And he was totally devastated. And he was praying, please, Yamuna, give my son back, please. Of course, Yamuna did that. So that's a transcendental pastime, seeing the total dependence of Krishna on his father and the total love of his father for Krishna, and the total dedication to protecting his son. So he was carried from Mathura, so I'm reading from the purport of 3:2:26. He was carried from Mathura to Vrindavan just after his appearance in the prison house of Kamsa. He lived there for 11 years and he lives in Vrindavan now for 11 years and completed all his fascinating pastimes of childhood, boyhood, and adolescence with his elder brother, Lord Balaram, his first expansion. Vasudeva's thought of protecting Krishna from the wrath or the anger of Kamsa is part of a transcendental relationship. The Lord enjoys more when someone takes him as his subordinate son who needs the protection of a father than he does when someone accepts him as the Supreme Lord. Now, why is that? Because he derives pleasure, just like why do a husband and wife have a child? Well, there are different reasons, but the main reason is they want to enjoy the childhood pastimes of the child who is completely dependent on them. When they grow up, it's different. The relationship is different when they're an adult. But when the child is still young, from being just born to about puberty, it's very enjoyable for the mother and father because they see the child smiling as a little baby when they say Hare Krishna and Jai Karo, and then the child starts smiling. So they go in a sort of a state of ecstasy, and then when the child starts to walk, it's another in there. So they have to hold it up, and it makes one or two steps, and it falls down, So, all these things are very, very nectarian for the parents. Of course, when the child is crying all night long and they can't sleep, that's a little bit or a child wakes up every night at 3 o'clock in the morning. Actually, that's good. It gets the parents to wake up for the Brahma Muhurta. But anyway, they want to enjoy. It's an expansion of themselves, they think, and they want to enjoy the childhood pastimes, which are usually very sweet. So, therefore, Krishna let Nanda Maharaj and Yasoda Mai enjoy his childhood pastimes, and it was nectar for them. Okay, so changing course a little bit. What time is it now? Okay, not 7:05. Yeah, I want to speak about something very important that's related somewhat to what we just read, and that is 13th chapter, 19th verse, and it says, "Iti chetram tata jnanam yeyam chuktam samsata mad bhakta itad vijnana mad bhava yopapadyate." And this verse says, "Thus the field of activities, the body, knowledge, and the knowable, have been summarily described by me. Only my devotees can understand this thoroughly and thus attain to my nature." So the other day we talked about how unless someone is very renounced and a devotee, they will not understand Krishna conscious knowledge. That was verse 60. What was that? 66? Was it? No, 60. No, that was verse. Okay, anyway, we read that verse, and it said that one must be, idam te nadapaskaya, text 67, 1867, nabhaktaya kadachana, nachaksus shru save vachyam, nachamam yo yasuyati. This confidential knowledge may never be explained to those who are not austere or devoted or engaged in devotional service, nor to one who is envious of me. Okay, now it's saying, only my devotees can understand this field of activities, knowledge, and the knowable. So the field of activities is the body, knowledge are the 18 points of knowledge explained in the 13th chapter, 8th to 12th verse, and 8th to 11th verse, and then the knowable, that is Krishna, the Supreme Personality Godhead. There's two knowables actually. It's the jiva and Krishna, and the relationship of the jiva, you or me, to Krishna. So that's explained in depth in this 13th chapter, and it'll be explained even more in the 15th chapter. So Prabhupada says in the purport, the Lord has described in summary the body, knowledge, and the knowable. This knowledge is of three things: the knower, the knowable, and the process of knowing. The knower, that's the jiva. The knowable, that's jiva and paramatma, well, ultimately the paramatma. And the process of knowing, that is amanitvam adamitvam ahimsa santir arjavam acharya pasamam socham staryam atma vinigraha indriyarte savairagyam anahankara evacha janramityu jaravyadi dukadosana darshanam. So it's a series of 5 or 6 verses that explains the 18 points of knowledge. And besides those 18 points, anything else is called ajnana, ignorance. So what they're learning in school is all ignorance. These 18 points should be very carefully understood, and it begins from amanitvam, humility. Knowledge without humility is useless. It's a waste of time. So, and the schools do now purposely try to build up the self-esteem of students in a materialistic way, by giving high fives and letting kids who actually fail tests pass go to the next grade. And now they're eliminating grades, because they don't want kids to compete. And so a lot of kids are graduating from high school, they can't even read. It depends where you're being educated. The inner city schools, many kids graduate without knowing how to read. Can you believe that? Look that up. Look that up on the internet. Some American children graduate high school without knowing how to read. Why? Because they're just doing nonsense all the time, and they purposely tell the teachers, let them pass the test, even though they flunk it. You see it? Okay, I'll keep talking. So this verse is extremely important. And it says, combine these three things, the knower, the knowledge, the knower, and the knowable. Knowledge is the 18 points of knowledge. The knower is the jiva, the individual soul. And the knowable is Krishna, the super soul in the heart of every living entity. Combined, these are called vijnana, or the science of knowledge. So there's the science of Krishna, and now we're talking about the science of knowledge. Did you see something like that? What's it say? Yeah, always bring the microphone. Very good. Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Yes.
So there is one article, it says, recent project Baltimore reports have exposed how some Baltimore City high school students are far behind in their education. Now one woman is sharing her story as a Baltimore City student who graduated from high school without learning how to read.
There you go. Baltimore is a disaster. It's a disaster place. Right. So there you go. Kids graduating from high school. That means somehow or other they flunked all the tests, but they graduated, and they don't even know how to read. No, it's not surprising. If you lived in the inner cities in America, you would understand. Those kids, they're all talking nonsense. They misbehave all the time in class, and they purposely tell each other, if you study, we'll kill you. Or we'll beat you up. Maybe not kill you, but we'll beat you up. In other words, they intimidate the other kids who want to study not to study. See, it's just going on a large scale in the inner cities. And then they just, want to be rappers, just do raps, or else basketball players or football players, And even when they go to college, let's say they're really good in basketball or football or baseball or whatever, they get these scholarships, and again, they don't have to pass the tests. They just give, even if they flunk the test, they just let them graduate because they're a good football player, right? And then if they're really good football players, they'll end up becoming millionaires playing football, right? So you see, there's a lot of nonsense going on in the United States. Okay, so this continues. Perfect knowledge can be understood by unalloyed devotees of the Lord directly. So what's an unalloyed devotee? Unalloyed devotee never takes a vacation, never leaves their service. If someone said, oh, let's go to Sadhu Sangha, the devotee say, no, I'm not going to go. Oh, you don't know what you're going to miss. They say, well, yeah, I know what I'm going to miss. I'm going to miss serving the deities. and I'm not going to do anything that will take me away from my deity service. Oh, wow. So you see, that is Savai Pumsa Parodharmo Yato Bhakti Rahoksite Haitukiya Pratyata Yayat Mastu Prasidati. That verse is the Srimad Bhagavatam, first canto, second chapter, verse number 6, which says, I'm sorry, yeah, it's verse number 6. It says, the supreme occupation, or Sanatan Dharma, for all humanity is that by which men can attain to loving devotional service unto the transcendent Lord. Such devotional service must be unmotivated and uninterrupted. What does uninterrupted mean? Yes.
Focus without taking breaks.
Exactly right. No vacation. Uninterrupted. Nothing interrupts it, right? Uninterrupted to completely satisfy the self. See, that's the whole point. When a person is not satisfied, they're always looking to go somewhere, here or there, hoping to get satisfied. When you're completely satisfied by serving Krishna, you don't want to go anywhere. You don't want to be divided from, you don't want to be outside of the service. So, and by the way, there's a saying in English, home sweet home. My mother used to say that all the time. And she never wanted to leave, the family home and hearth, the family play. The hearth is where in old times people used to cook not in the stove, but they would have a big fireplace, and the whole family would be around the fireplace, and that's where they would cook, and then that's where they would tell stories, and that's where they would eat, and that's called the hearth. Where the whole family, Hearth, look that up, home and hearth. So, and so that's an ancestral way of living. In winter it would get cold, so the family would spend time near the fireplace, and then they would, after dinner, they would tell stories, and they would have, the kids would be completely mesmerized by hearing the grandfather telling stories about Krishna, and hearing the ancient histories. What's it say? Hearth, home and hearth.
So it's home and hearth. It's a phrase. A person's home and family life can be referred to as their home, health. Sorry, it's hearth and home.
Yeah, it's a family life, but it's usually near the fireplace where it's warm in the wintertime, right? Okay, so yeah, there's no with unmotivated, meaning you have no material desire for performing devotional service, and uninterrupted means no vacation. That is pure devotional. That means you're getting very, very elevated spiritually, where you take responsibility for serving the deity, and you don't want anything to interrupt that. So I'm going to continue this subject tomorrow on this verse 13:19, because it's a very important verse, and it's a very important chapter 13. Okay.
Yeah,
Are there any questions?
I found some similar reference, Maharaj, for the hearth.
Yes.
A hearth is the place in a home where a fire is or was traditionally kept for home heating and for cooking.
There you go. See, that's exactly right. And that's where usually the parents would educate their kids, and the grandparents also, by telling stories about Krishna and giving them wisdom and so forth. And there was no television. There was no internet. And the kids turned out to be mostly very, very good. right? In fact, in 1825, Lord Macaulay, he asked a South Indian Brahmin, he says, what is it about you people? He said, they're all good. Nobody's cheating, nobody's lying, nobody's thieving. What's the secret? Back in England, we have so many cheaters and liars and murderers. Jack the Ripper. You ever hear of Jack the Ripper? He was a mass murderer in London in the 1890s, right? He's very famous. You don't have to look him up, but so he said, he was saying, this was at the height of the British Empire, 1890s, and so Lord Macaulay, this is in 1825, he's asking this South Indian Brahmin, and the South Indian Brahmin said, well, he said, first of all, we don't kill cows, we protect them, and we protect women and children and elderly persons and so women, children, elderly persons, cows, and I think he said there's one more thing, Mother Earth, was it? And but the first thing he said, we never kill cows. So what did Lord Macaulay do? He opened the first slaughterhouse for cows in 1825 because he wanted to destroy Vedic culture. Now you have over 30,000 slaughterhouses in India. 30,000. He opened the first one. No one ever imagined killing a cow in India before that. Only demons would have done that. Now the normal people do it. The Hindus do it, and they make business out of it. Okay, so we'll stop right there unless there's another question, and then we'll have Guru Puja. You see how the British were more devastating than the Muslims, although the Muslims were brutal, right? Killing you and forcing you to. The British were very subtle. They took over the educational system and that way destroyed faith in the Vedas. And they called the Vedas mythology. And they called the demons idols. Today, Hindus use the word idol all the time. This one person came the other day and he said, are the idols open? I said, don't use the word idol. He said, why not? I said, because idol means that they're just made out of stone, and they're, like if you want to see an idol, you go to the library in Bellevue, and you'll see the idol of Gandhi outside. There's bird crap on it, and once a year they'll do a little puja, and that's it. That's an idol. These are not idols. So even the Hindus, they're completely bewildered by the British education. So they use the word idol and mythology, referring to the Vedas, and idol referring to the deities. It's a sad state, very sad state. Okay, Haribol. Yeah.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. In 3.223 text, when we talked about Sisupala, you said there are two emerging ways the soul is taken.
Yes.
One is to Brahmajyoti and the other is into Krishna.
No, that's for the impersonalists, not for the devotees.
For the impersonalists.
Yeah.
Okay. I just thought I wanted
The devotees go back to Godhead.
Got it. But my question was, isn't Brahmajyoti also in Krishna?
Yeah, of course, but it's an expansion of Krishna, whereas Sisupala emerged right into the body of Krishna. You see, it's different. The realization is the same, impersonal realization. So Krishna will give Brahman realization even to demons, the demons that he kills. So, and then the yogis and the Mayavadis, they'll do tapasya for hundreds, years sometimes to be able to attain the same thing, whereas Krishna will give it immediately to a demon that he kills. So it's not really a great thing to merge into the Brahman. I mean, it's better than living in the material world, but it's one will fall down from the Brahman if they are impersonalist.
Okay. One more question. So the soul is identified as Purusha and the body is identified as Prakriti. Am I learning that right or understanding it right?
Yes, but actually the soul is, the jiva is also Prakriti. Krishna is the real Purusha. The jiva acts like a Purusha in a state of illusion, thinking that they can enjoy the material world. The real Purusha is Krishna. So that's, but see, when a jiva is an illusion, they pretend that they're a Purusha, or they try and imitate Krishna, and because of that, they become subject to the law of karma. But when you realize I'm not Purusha, I'm Prakriti, I'm meant to give pleasure to Krishna, at that point, the jiva becomes liberated. If they act continually like Prakriti.
Okay. Thank you, Maharaj.
Yeah. Who wants to sing? You want to sing again? Oh. Ooh.
Shri Guru Charana Padma Kevala Bhakati Sadma
Shri Guru Charana Padma Kevala Bhakati Sadma
Bandho Mui Savadana Ma Te
Mando Mui Sabadana Mate
Jahara Prasade Bai E Bhavatoriya Jai
Janara Prasade Vai E Bhavatoriya Jai
Krishna Prapti Hoy Jaha Hoy Te
Krishna Prapti Hoya Hoy
Guru Mukha Padma Vakya Chitite Goriya Akya
Guru Mukha Padma Vaikya Chitete Koriya
Arana Kori Ho Mane Asha
Arana Koriya Mane Asa
Shri Guru Charane Rati Aise Utama Gati
Shri Guru Charane Rati Aise Utama Gati
Jai Prasade Pure Sarva Asha
Jai Prasade Pure Sarvasa
चक्षुदान दिलो जय जन्मे जन्मे प्रभु से
चक्षुदान दिला जय जन्मे प्रभु से
चक्षुदान दिलो जय जन्मे जन्मे प्रभु से
चक्षुदान दिला जय जन्मे प्रभु से
दिव्य ज्ञान हृदय प्रकाशित
दिव्य ज्ञान हृदय प्रकाशित
प्रेम भक्ति जहाँ होते अविद्या विनाश जाते
प्रेम भक्ति जहाँ होते अविद्या विनाश जाते
वेद गाय जहर चरितो
वेद गाय जनर चरितो
श्री गुरु करुणा सिंधु आदम जनर बंधु
गुरु करुणा सिंधु आदम जनर बंधु
लोकनाथ लोकेरा जीवाना
लोकेरा जीवाना
हा प्रभु करो दया देहो मोरे पद छाया
प्रभु कोर दया देव पद छाया
एवे जास गौशी त्रिभुवना प्रभु पाद पतित पवना
प्रभु पतित पवना
जय प्रभु पद जय प्रभु पद जय प्रभु पद जय प्रभु पद
जय प्रभु पद जय प्रभु पद जय प्रभु पद जय प्रभु पद
नमो विष्णु पदाय कृष्ण पृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्ति वेदांत स्वामी निति नामिने श्रीमते भक्ति
वेदांत स्वामी निति नामिने
नमो विष्णुपदाय कृष्ण पृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्ति वेदांत स्वामी निति नामिने
नमो विष्णुपदाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्ति वेदांत स्वामी निति नामिने
नमस्ते सरस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे
नमस्ते सरस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे
नमस्ते सरस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे
नमस्ते सरस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे
जय प्रभु पद जय प्रभु पद जय Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada.
Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada.
Jaya Guru Deva, Jaya Guru Deva, Jaya Guru Deva, Jaya Guru Deva.
Jaya Guru Deva, Jaya Guru Deva, Jaya Guru Deva, Jaya Guru Deva.
Nitya Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitya Gaura Hari Bol.
Nitya Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Nitya Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitya Gaura Hari Bol.
Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitya Gaura Hari Bol. Jayom Vishnupad Paramhansa Paravajikachasta Tarasatana Shri Shimad. His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Goswami Maharaj, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, Anantakoti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai, Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai, Prem Sikho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar, Shri Vasudeva Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai, Shri Radha Krishna Gaur Gopinath Samkunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai, Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai, Shri Mayapura Dham Ki Jai, Shri Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai, Tulasi Devi Ki Jai, Bhakti Devi Ki Jai, Ganga Maya Ki Jai, Jamuna Maya Ki Jai, Samaveda Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai, Nitai Gaura Premanande. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Shri Garanga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada, Patita Pavani Ki Jai. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Namaste Saraswati Devi. The lotus feet of our spiritual master are the only way by which we can attain the pure devotional service. I bow to those lotus feet with great awe and reverence. By his grace one can cross the ocean of material suffering and obtain the mercy of Krishna. My only wish is to have my consciousness purified by the words emanating from his lotus mouth. Attachment to his lotus feet is perfection and fulfills all desires. He opens my darkened eyes and fills my heart with transcendental knowledge. He is my Lord, birth and for birth. From him, ecstatic prema emanates. By him, ignorance is destroyed. The Vedic scriptures sing of his character. Our spiritual master is the ocean of mercy, friend of the poor, and Lord and master of devotees. O Master, be merciful unto us. Give us the shade of your lotus feet. Your fame is spread throughout all the three worlds. We take shelter of your lotus feet. Srila Prabhupada, Patita Pavana Ki Jai. Haribol.